If you're looking at planning a trip to Alaska, this is for you. We actually planned most of our Alaska trip pretty last minute, by Alaska terms at least, which was about 4 to 6 months out. And in the video, you'll see how that played out.
We have added lessons learned from Denali, Kenai Fjords, Katmai, Lake Clark, Gates of the Arctic, and Kobuk Valley, along with details about what we suggest you consider to help map out your own trip.
Whether you're planning far ahead or pulling it together closer to go time, throughout the story of our journey to Alaska, we'll share what was doable, what you might miss if you wait to book the big, hard-to-get reservations.
We're Jan B, and at the beginning of 2021, we hit the road. Permanently. We traded our city apartment for a constant stream of Airbnbs, new states and places, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Come along with us as we explore all the U.S. and beyond has to offer, and join us as we continue
Living on the way.
We're going to recap our trip to Denali National Park, and we're on location in Talkeetna, Alaska, which is a funky little riverside town that's known as the Gateway to Denali. And this trip is a big milestone for us because Denali is my 51st national park.
And it's my 50th national park. And we definitely wanted to make it special. But as you'll find out, Alaska had its own ideas. It is special, but special in a little bit different way than we planned to do it.
Right, and we talk more about our pivoting in a future episode, but originally we flew into Fairbanks from Seattle with plans of renting a car, driving down to Denali National Park, but Alaska being Alaska, wildfires had different plans for us. So the road closed, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to get through, and if we could, if we'd be able to get back. So we had to pivot fast.
We ended up booking a last-minute ticket on the Denali Star Alaska Railroad, and honestly, it was a blessing in disguise. It was very enjoyable. It was a very relaxing train trip, very scenic, and the more classic way to see some of the Alaska in the interior.
The bottom line is travel in Alaska does demand flexibility. And so we had originally planned to stay in the Holland America Hotel, which we were able to, and it's within the park boundaries. But what actually turned out to be a blessing that we didn't even know about is that it had a shuttle system. And so they'll take you from the hotel to the park and to some of the surrounding areas. So when we got there on the Denali Star train, they picked us up and took us to the hotel, which was very helpful because that first day we didn't have a car.
Speaking of the hotel, let's talk about the heat wave that was happening while we were there. The hotel didn't have AC, which makes sense 99% of the time. Unfortunately, for us anyway, it was very hot while we were there.
It was in the 80s, I'm pretty sure, there in Denali, which was cooler than in Fairbanks, but it's just not cut out for that kind of heat. So it was hot.
Yeah, definitely some sweaty nights, but the mountain views and the nature made up for it. Still very enjoyable. And honestly, the views, that's where the money is. Denali National Park, of course, is home to the tallest peak in North America at 20,310 feet.
And you can almost see it here in our view, maybe in the distance, but you can't see the top. And you can see we've been calling it Mount McNally because whoever is in power at the time will name it whatever they choose. So Mount McKinley, Mount Denali, but
it's all the same mountain for sure. And while it is hazy right now, we are happy to at least be able to see it a little bit, especially a little bit earlier today, because they say, and I find it very true because we've had a chance to see it 4 different days and only seen it one of the 4 days, that only 30% of visitors even have a chance to see it because the weather hides it the rest of the time.
Originally saw it from the air. They call it the 30% club or the 70% club, but depending on if you see it or not.
So if you can, spend a few days here. Give yourself a chance to see it. And as Bean mentioned, can't see it while you're down here. Try to have a window seat on your air flight because you have a chance to see it above the clouds, which are blocking it from, of course, the ground view.
Right. And also, if you don't see it, just know you're joining the 70% club, which is a lot of the visitors who aren't seeing it. So I think you're joining an okay club too, because at least you were here in an amazing Alaska surroundings.
Absolutely. And the Denali Park, it definitely has more to offer. One of the highlights for us was going to see a sled dog demonstration.
Right. And say what you will about, I know that in some touristy areas, they'll have sled dog rides and make your own decisions on how you feel about that for tourism. But in the park, these dogs are working. They have a job to do, especially in the winter, patrolling the park, helping get things around. So it was really nice to see that tradition continue on with sled dogging.
Yeah, that's right. The Denali is the only active national park that has active sled dogs, and they do work. They work all through the winter to move supplies around.
And so when we were there, the dogs, it was hot. So they weren't as active as I know they can be, but they were still, when it was time for them to do their demonstration, they were jumping up with excitement to be the ones picked for the run. And my favorite was the puppy training race. Cutest thing ever. It's such a unique Alaskan experience.
The new litter, they were working to train them to run back to their cage. So they released them and off they ran, mostly back towards their cage, but, need a little prompting for some of them to go in the right direction.
Right. Running in a pack, too, I think is part of it.
Next, we decided to rent a Jeep. We found a spot where we could rent a Jeep for the day so we could get around and check out the sights on our own and make the stops that we wanted to see and do a couple hikes.
Right. And you're able to go about 15 miles, I believe it is, into the park before you have to stop. There's a Savage River trail at the very end, which we did. It was a nice trail, kind of an alpine, very beautiful views, but it did rain, as it does in Alaska.
As it does. And we had a chance to see some moose on the way in.
Mm-hmm.
Baby and a mama and a couple other single female moose. So there's some moose around. Keep your eyes peeled.
And the park actually has different tours you can pay to do that can actually take you beyond where you can actually drive on your own. So what would you say to someone visiting Denali but unsure of the logistics?
I would say that there are some options. You, of course, can rent the car, which was our original plan. The Denali Star comes from both Anchorage and Fairbanks.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get to the park, and then that park is set up to move people around because a lot of folks come up on tour buses as well from the cruises. So when you get to the park or to the hotels, they have a shuttle system to get you around the park. In fact, that's one of the only ways to get deep into the park is to take the official park shuttles. And then the hotels also have the options to pick you up from train stations and the park. So it's very much set up that if you don't have your own car, you can still get around.
Yeah, and so now that we're sitting here in Talkeetna, just a stone throw away from the river, and we're surrounded by people who are gearing up to do the adventurous side of Denali, whether that's climbs or scenic flights. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see planes flying by on their way to McKinley or Denali Peak. And it really hits us like how big, beautiful, and very unpredictable this state has been for us.
Visiting Denali, visiting Alaska as a whole, of course, is a big milestone for us as we reach 51st and 50th National Park. But on top of being a big milestone, it's got the big mountain. And of course, it's also just a big reminder that adventures, as much as you plan them out, they don't always go as planned.
So, what do you need to know about planning Denali? Well, if you're coming down from Fairbanks in the summer, you need to build in flex days. Wildfires are very common in the summer. And even if you're coming from Anchorage, Denali can have closures because of smoke and visibility. But if you're coming from Fairbanks, sometimes the roads will close. And that's what we ran into.
Definitely give yourself some wiggle room instead of a razor-thin, tight itinerary.
Denali itself runs mostly on one road, and the National Park Service runs buses. And it actually goes beyond where you can go as a visitor, which means you can experience Denali without a car.
As you heard in our Denali journey, pivoting to a last-minute revised trip that is by train instead of car is completely doable.
So now you're joining us on location at Resurrection Bay, just outside Kenai Fjords National Park. And we are recording this a few days after we have been in Seward and back to Anchorage and then Seward again. Long story, I forgot my laptop at an Airbnb, but it's given us a chance to record this video for you. And this is all about our trip to Kenai Fjords National Park, which was my 54th national park.
And that was number 53 for me. And honestly, it lived up to my expectations. But let's back up real quick. To get to Kenai Fjords, we drove down from Anchorage down to Seward. And it's a really nice drive, very beautiful and scenic, driving through the mountain ranges.
Right. We drove from Anchorage to Seward, and because of an earlier pivot, it was actually relatively late at night. And being an Alaska summer, it was still somewhat bright, and so we got to see a glimpse of the beautiful mountain ranges and the water, but we weren't able to stop on that particular drive.
Yeah, just to take pictures.
And on the way back, we did a quick stop at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. It was absolutely packed. So just a heads up, if you're going during peak hours, expect crowds. But it is very easy. It's right off of Alaska Highway 1 between Anchorage and Seward.
It's nice to be able to see the animals up close. They rehabilitate orphaned and injured animals there. So it was good to see some of the animals we've been seeing at a distance up close and personal. But, let's talk about the real highlight of Kenai Fjords, which is Resurrection Bay, which for us, we went around in a small boat tour just to check out the different wildlife, sea life, and the sights and sounds.
And it is important to note, too, that when it's not big swells in the ocean, they can take you out further and you can see even more wildlife. But not even 10 minutes into our ride, we saw a humpback whale feeding by himself. So we watched him for quite a while. And then we came across some puffins. There were so many puffins, and I believe they were called common murres.
Yes.
which I guess are cousins of the penguins. But there was 2 kinds of puffins, and we've never seen puffins in the wild. So that was really cool.
Yeah, they're fun little creatures. Bright colored beaks, of course. Just kind of comical looking.
And we also saw sea otters with babies, just floating on their backs, looking like they were living their best lives.
One of the coolest things, completely unexpected, really. We're going to tell you about it, so maybe you can expect it. When we went out, the tide was super low. So as we were cruising along, the boat captain took us over to the water's edge out where some of the cliffs are. And we were actually able to spot probably hundreds of sea stars clinging to the sides of the rock. It was like we were seeing like below the ocean, only it was above the ocean because the tide was out.
Yeah, it was like tide pooling, only up on the walls rather than looking down. So what surprised you, Jay, most about the bay?
Just how easy it was to see wildlife, to be honest. I mean, from the seals to the otters.
Yeah, we saw 2 different kinds of seals. I forgot about that. We saw the harbor seals and then just sea lions.
They were just fun, doing all kinds of fun things, goofing around.
Mm-hmm.
We were a little concerned at first because it was a choppy wave day out in the actual deeper water. So we're like, oh no, we're only stuck with Resurrection Bay, but let's make the best of it. As it turned out, I'm sure it is better, but Resurrection Bay is plenty entertaining with all the wildlife there. So B, of all the different animal encounters we saw and moments we had, what was a favorite?
I think watching the humpback whale feed because our boat captain got us right up and we were, I don't know, it felt really close. Saw him come up spout and then he did the full, I don't know if he did the tail out at that point, but he was real close. I don't think you could get much closer without being right up on him.
We were probably 20 feet away from him doing a little backflip. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and Kenai Fjords isn't just about the water. We also did a hike to Exit Glacier, which is one of the few accessible glaciers by car and by hike in Alaska.
The trail is definitely a very nice little trail because you get to see the views of the glacier, but then I also call out different signs with years marked on them, which show where the glacier was. So you can see how much it's moved back from 1917, which was the earliest one we saw back
on the
to,
trail,
to current day. And it's moved back quite a bit.
And after all that, we had this quirky, awesome Airbnb just outside of town. It was cozy, I think it was called the Pilot's Nest, Pilot House.
The Pilot House.
Pilot House. And it was a great base for us to recharge those couple days between our land and water adventures. So Jay, how did this park compare to others we've done in Alaska?
I would say the sea life is up there. Just the fact that you can see it all and you don't have to travel across large parts of the ocean. So I think that made it unique and definitely is on the must recommend. And the fact that you can get to it pretty easy. I mean, Seward is a short drive from Anchorage. Anchorage is easy to get into. So as far as access go, it's probably one of the easiest, if not the easiest park to get into.
And Seward has everything you need. It's a big cruise port, and so it has a lot of shops and places to eat. So we really enjoyed Seward. So yeah, I would agree that's kind of what surprised me.
So if you're heading to Alaska and want to combine glaciers, wildlife, and a little boat adventures, Kenai Fjords has to be on your list.
It was one of those kind of rare park visits where everything kind of worked out, but didn't, because again, it's Alaska. We did have to pivot a little bit,
And hey, it's not a bad way to inch closer to our goal of visiting all the parks.
Over to Kenai Fjords. The big planning move is deciding how you want to split your time between water and ice. The Exit Glacier area is the only part that you can drive up to, and then most of the park is best seen by booking a boat tour out of Seward. And that way you can get up close and personal with glaciers, whales, and so much more wildlife.
But here's a big tip that we learned. While small, sometimes private boat tours seem appealing because you have a more say over where you go, these small boats have a very hard time getting out into the open ocean.
Right. And we missed the chance at seeing whales bubble netting and other wildlife because the 2 days we had planned to go out on a boat, the ocean was too rough, which our boat captain told us happens a lot.
And heading even further into the wilderness.
Next up, we're taking you to Gates of the Artic and Kobuk Valley National Parks. Where there are no roads into the park, bush planes become your Uber, and the idea of what a national park visit looks like gets completely rewritten. Today, we're going to share with you our trip to Gates of the Artic.
Yes, we are in the remote of the remotest right now. We've just landed inside Gates of the Arctic National Park in northern Alaska. It is one of the most remote places in the entire national park system. Probably is the most remote place I've ever been. We took a small bush plane up here and it landed essentially here on the dry banks of a river. And as soon as the engine cut, the silence of where we were was really overwhelming, to be honest. The only sound we really hear right now is this beautiful crystal glacier blue river running right beside us.
Right. We climbed out, stretched our legs, and took a few minutes to just take it all in. This endless Arctic tundra. So there's the sharp peaks and the feeling of being completely off the grid. We just finished taking a couple pictures with the plane and a makeshift national park sign because, surprise, out in the middle of nowhere, there are no signs to take pictures with. And we have literally ran over to the river's edge to film this on-location segment. And that is what we're sharing with you now.
Yeah, we're sitting on an old washed-up log.
Questionably sound. I think it's going to hold us.
It's right here on this edge of this glacial blue water.
And we're going to attempt to share this moment with you.
No roads come here. Essentially, you could maybe hike a long ways, or what we did, take a small bush plane up. And there's no runways. You just land on the land. In our case, the rocky riverbed.
Right. And I would call this the wild heart of Alaska. People that come here often are floating the river, or they'll backpack across the tundra, or come here to say they've stepped foot in one of the last truly wild places in America.
You see some campsites set up, but outside of that, there's nothing here other than wildlife and nature. And that's really because it is so far north. It is entirely inside the Arctic Circle, and the park is huge. It's 8.5 million acres of untouched wild protected by this park.
I think that makes it the second largest national park.
So, B, what's something that stands out to you about our flight coming up here?
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed watching just the different terrains. You'd have the sharp, jagged peaks of the mountains around us and the multiple streams of the river just separated from each other and then braiding together and just creating this beautiful terrain. I think that for me is what stuck with me.
I agree. We flew over Kobuk Valley, which we will recap next because we're going back to Kobuk Valley, but we flew over it to come on up here. Really, it's just the scale of the mountains. And when you're in a small plane, you get right up on the peaks. It's a fascinating view of the top of these giant, enormous mountains and sharp, jagged peaks.
So we need to wrap up because we only have a few fleeting moments left to take in this wilderness. So we're going to go down to the banks of the river and really just try to get a few fleeting moments of peace.
Yeah, and it looks like they also need our help pushing the plane back so we can get a little more space to get out of here. We made it here to the desert, also known as Kobuk Valley National Park, or at least the part that we were able to land in here in our bush plane. We did fly over a ton of rivers, but right now we are sitting in a ginormous desert. And this is isolated as well and one of the least visited national parks. I believe less than 20K persons a year visit this place, which, on the other end of the spectrum is like a Yellowstone with like 3-4 million visitors.
Yeah, and this is Alaska, but we're sitting in what looks like the Sahara. And honestly, it is one of the strangest, almost surreal landscapes I've ever been in. So you've got the rolling sand as far as the eye can see, but then right behind us, you've got spruce forests and tundra. Our plane landed here in what is called the Great Kobuk Sand Dunes, and they're massive. They're up to 100 feet tall.
Yeah, and where we're at, roughly 25 square miles of these sand dunes.
And being in the sand, you almost expect camels to come walking by in the distance. But instead, you probably have a better chance of seeing caribou.
Yes, and speaking of caribou, twice a year, around 400,000 of them from the western Arctic caribou herd migrate through this park. Honestly, that would be amazing to see.
And this park does cover not as much as Gates of the Arctic, but it's still 1.7 million acres. And I think I read that that's roughly or slightly larger than the state of Delaware, for a point of context. And it protects these animals. It also protects boreal forests, wetlands, tundra, and, of course, the sand dunes.
As far as takeaways goes, the diversity is one, but then the remoteness and the vastness of all this is really what's going to stay with me.
So if you're listening or by chance watching this and thinking, oh, I'll just put Kobuk on my bucket list, I say do it, but also know that it takes work. You've got to plan flights. Weather is so unpredictable here. There's actually a wildfire burning right now that's causing some issues as well. And you really do need to be ready for the unexpected. But I guess that's what makes it worth it, though.
We did see those wildfires on the way in, by the way, but now it's time for us to do a little more exploring around sand dunes, and we got to get back over to the airplane.
It looks like we won't have to push the plane backwards like we did on the last flight out of the Arctic.
Yeah, that's for sure. Large sand deserts make it a little easier to take off. But there you have it. These are two completely very remote national parks, and we were able to do them both in the same day.
As you most likely picked up, between Gates of the Arctic and Kobuk Valley, the big theme is you must build in time margins.
In this corner of Alaska, the weather and logistics run the show, not your preset plans or your spreadsheet.
Even though technically you can fly from Fairbanks, like we had planned to do into those parks, these flights depend heavily on weather and wildfires, so there's no guarantee that there will be clear skies or that the operators are willing to fly on that day. or those days that you plan.
We did get the sense that those operators do not prefer to fly from Fairbanks and seemingly deprioritize those flights.
There are other gateway communities like Beatles or Coldfoot, so we encourage you to do more research about other places besides Fairbanks.
But our honest recommendation is just to bite the bullet and base yourself out of Kotzebue. Stay at the one in-town hotel, assume you'll need a couple nights in case the weather delays the flights, and treat the downtime as part of the adventure.
Kotzebue itself is tiny, but we did enjoy passing the time at the Northwest Arctic Heritage Center, which is the National Park Center, and it had a nice quiet lounge-like area if you need to regroup. Or grabbing a meal at the Thai place in town, which was something we very much enjoyed while we waited for the flight back to Anchorage.
From Kotzebue, the Bush Plains have a much more direct route straight to Great Kobuk Sand Dunes and the whole Gates of Arctic National Park.
Next up, we're trading Bush Plain hopscotch for another fly-in park with a totally different vibe, Lake Clark National Park, which we captured vlog style because we had some recording issues for our podcast, but it was an amazing blend of remote Alaska, and I can't believe this is real views.
Access is still by small charter aircraft, and it's usually a 1-hour flight from Anchorage or Homer.
Lake Clark feels like Alaska's secret. Not many venture here, but for those who do, the silence, the scale, and the solitude leave lasting impressions. This is our story of that trip. We tried to record an on-location podcast episode here, but things did not go as planned. But this place is too good not to share. We're J&B, and at the beginning of 2021, we hit the road. Permanently. We traded our city apartment for a constant stream of Airbnbs, new states, and places. And we wouldn't have it any other way. Come along with us as we explore all the U.S. and beyond has to offer. And join us as we continue.
Living on the way. Lake Clark isn't the easiest to get to, as in, you can't drive here. So we had to fly in on a small plane with Lake and Peninsula Airlines. And just the flight alone, though, was the beginning of the experience. It had nice views of the mountains. We flew up a valley. We could see some glaciers, rivers.
Jay even got the opportunity to ride up front in the cockpit.
The pilot said I could choose to go up and over the mountains, down and around the valleys, or around to the left to see a bigger view of a glacier.
And you chose?
The valley, because I thought it sounded very interesting to drive up the valley to Lake Clark.
We touched down in Port Ellsworth on only a gravel airstrip in a tiny Alaskan village of just about 130 people. So there is some well-developed tiny town infrastructure, including a food truck, but it feels like landing inside wilderness itself. But there was no time to pause. The host of our accommodations whisked us and our luggage off to the waiting boat to start our exploration of Lake Clark. While our luggage headed to our cabin for the next 2 nights, our boat captain and guide navigated us through the main Lake Clark and then through a sandy, shallow channel into Little Lake Clark. Once at the very end of the valley, we stopped at a private beach for lunch. Well, I guess all the beaches here are private, but we were surrounded just by mountain walls, skies, every once in a while, a plane leaving Port Ellsworth, and it was just very relaxing and peaceful. I think it was the best turkey sandwich on wheat I've ever had.
Yeah, it was really nice just sitting there, eating our sandwiches, our packed-in lunch, surrounded by total quiet.
Then, as we were heading back, we actually came across a black bear.
Specifically, B spotted a nice black bear sitting up on a rock ledge as we were boating by.
He was setting up for the sun to come out, and he was going to sunbathe, and we kind of ruined that for him.
And then we headed back to our cabin that is part of the small family-run Wilderness Pro Lodge to enjoy a homemade dinner and some relaxation in the wood-fired sauna and hot tub, followed by some peaceful, quiet sleep. So on our last full day, we woke up and took the boat back across to Port Allsworth, and we hiked the Denali Falls Trail. So it's a moderate hike, and I think it was from where we parked the boat to the falls and then back again, it was about 4 miles round trip.
It was on the easier side of a moderate hike, and it was a good payoff because it was a fairly powerful waterfall.
It just explodes out of the rocks, and the water was really high and really rushing. You could really feel the power of the falls. So after the hike, we actually walked what's essentially the runway and the main road up to the National Park Visitor Center. So it's closed on Sundays and Mondays, at least right now, which, surprise, was actually when we were there. But they do have the stamp still available outside in a little weatherproof box. Our host came back with the boat to pick us up, and we spent one final night relaxing and enjoying Lake Clark.
I would say the whole park really is a big reminder, though, of just how wild Alaska still is. No buses, no cars, no gift shops, no lines, no restaurants, no grocery stores. It's just the nature that allows for you to have some peaceful times, some peaceful nights of sleep as well.
But before too long, it was time to head back to Port Allsworth to take our flight back to Anchorage and to our next adventures in Alaska. If you want to continue to follow our journey towards our national park goal and just our lifestyle of travel, please like or subscribe or follow.
We love having you along for the ride.
Lake Clark is one of those places where the logistics look intimidating on paper, but really it makes a perfect 1 to 2 nights side trip if you plan ahead.
You'll want to lock in your lodging first. Most people either stay at the lodge right in Port Allsworth, which is a town where the small planes land, or like we did, choose a more tucked away Airbnb that's out by Lake Clark.
Then you're going to want to book your air transportation, which will be by small plane. And there are at least 2 companies that fly regular, multiple times a day schedules. We took Lake and Penn Airlines and had 0 issues. We even stored our big luggage with them in Anchorage and took just what we needed over to Lake Clark. But once those 2 big pieces are in place, you're basically set. The rest is just deciding how you want to divide your time between boat trips, lake views, hiking, and soaking up how quiet it is compared to the rest of your Alaska itinerary. If Lake Clark seems surreal, next up is where it all turns cinematic. We're heading to Brooks Falls and Katmai National Park for one of the most incredible bear viewing experiences. Think brown bears, a wooden viewing platform, and a literal tsunami wave of salmon launching themselves upstream right in front of you.
Yeah, we flew into King Salmon yesterday on Alaskan Air. And then this morning, we hopped on flight with Katmai Air. We've been spending last night and tonight at a nice little cozy cabin at Sockeye Cabins.
And it's a very small town. They have a bar and restaurant, a tiny airport, and a grocery store.
Yeah, and a visitor center with some good helpful info for those visiting for the first time like ourselves.
We arrived in Katmai, specifically at Brooks Camp, which is I think it's the only developed spot in Katmai. And it's also most recognizable. If you know about Katmai, you know about Brooks Falls usually. So it's famous for salmon leaping. And specifically during the salmon runs, they leap up a 6-foot waterfall, and it creates epic bear viewing scenes as they have an abundance of salmon to fatten them up for the next winter.
Oh, and this is where you can see just millions of salmon.
A tsunami wave of
salmon. When they reach the 6-foot high, then they have to jump up, and then that's where you get the iconic images.
Right. And I have seen many YouTube videos of just multiple bears standing on the falls, just grabbing a fish out of the air. But
interesting for this year, July 2025, instead of the bears all crowding the falls, when the salmon run, the salmon are actually so abundant this year that the bears don't all have to come to the falls area, and they're spreading out and still getting their fill. So we noticed some on the way in, walk in, and of course we still saw bears on the falls, but there definitely saw a good 20 plus bears, not even on the falls, just out there eating fish in and around the waterways.
so some of those iconic scenes you have of 4 or 5 bears, what that is the competition for salmon is a little bit higher. So they're all in one place fighting with each other for that salmon. And this year, like Jay mentioned, with the tsunami wave of salmon, there is no competition basically. They're out there playing. And as someone who researched heavily about the bear cams that you see on YouTube, I think it's explore.org. So you can watch and you see them just playing. We knew going into it that it wasn't going to be 5, 6 bears on the falls. They're all there. How many bears do you think we saw?
Oh, at least 30 unique ones, maybe many more than that. At least 20 of them out away from the falls, but in the falls, even with being quote unquote, maybe not as busy it could be, most of the time around the falls had at least 3 to 8, 9 bears at a time. So there's still lots of bears around.
They're just more relaxed and happy, right? They're playing with their fish. They're being very picky about their fish. You'll see a lot of bears just grab one, take the part he wants, throw it back. Or he'll grab one and decide it wasn't worth it and throw it back before he even eats it. So very relaxed.
Yeah, they're very picky. They eat the brains, they eat the skin, and they'll eat the eggs. So they're just going for the high calorie aspects of the salmon.
There's no dramatic catch-offs at the waterfall, but plenty of natural behavior from the bears and still very beautiful sightings. Before we went, I was a little concerned because I want that epic waterfall view, but it didn't matter. It was still mama with her babies out playing. Because it's so relaxed, she can bring them to the falls. That doesn't always happen because it's so competitive and all the big males are there. What was one of your most memorable moments, like bear moments? I know that's hard. So maybe...
Yeah, so there's many on the list. But the first one that jumps to mind is as we were walking back to the falls area. It's about a 1.3 mile walk from the Lodge Visitor Center area out to the actual viewing platforms. And one of the times that we were walking out there, actually every time we walk out there, we saw bears. One of the times there was literally 5 bears running up the path at us, just trotting along. I mean, it's incredible. You get as far away from the path as you can, but you just see these bears just moving faster than we can move right on by you. It's crazy to watch.
And one of the things that everyone has to do before they go out is go to bear school. And one of the things she did mention, and she said specifically this year, you'll be walking and you'll just hear barreling bears coming in because they're just running and playing. And we did witness that. And they also say to make sure that you're talking to the bears so that they know that you're there. But these are bears that are born and raised around humans. Not domesticated by any means, but they are aware of humans and they do understand them. But you just have to give them their space.
Yeah, their bellies are full of salmon, but you don't want to startle them, surprise them.
This leads us into some interesting facts about Katmai National Park. And it's actually, I believe she said today, the ranger said that it's the largest concentration of these particular types of bears in the world. I read somewhere it was like 2,200 or more bears concentrated in this area. So that does lend to many interactions with the bears.
It does. And that's the mind-blowing part. Everyone says it, but it still blows your mind when you see it. We loved every second of it. And they're all there for very good reason. It's good habitat, but then also the food supply, specifically the salmon, is abundant plus. For example, while you're hanging out at the falls, some of the park staff and the rangers do hand counts of how many salmon roughly are jumping up at the falls so they can get an idea. And the ranger let us know that the salmon run today was anywhere from 900 and they measured over 1,200 per minute.
Jumping.
Right. And I think we read that it was on average like 400 a minute. Is that what we saw?
Yeah, that was the average this time of year. But of course, with our
tsunami,
I mean, there was
salmon.
salmon on salmon. And that was just made for, a unique but special experience for ourselves.
And bear viewing traditionally peaks in July. So we're here in mid-July and it goes through September. So this is the heart of it. And every year the conditions vary. So we saw a lot of salmon and much more relaxed bears. And so let's talk a little bit about how you do Brooks Falls. Because I think we mentioned that we took Katmai Air. So there's one water taxi and many airlines that do the float planes. There's no runway or anything like that. You land in the water.
Once you get there, you see bears right away. We landed. There's bears on the beach. Once you're able to safely miss the bears, get off, disembark, and to go through bear training.
Bear school.
Bear school. Very important because there is so many bears. The bears will be as close to you, closer than you want. So you have to learn how to get out of the way, keep food out in certain locations. So after you go through bear school, then you walk on out that 1.3 mile out to the 2 platforms. The upper one, it's right by the falls, and the lower one,
Riffles.
And then from both, of course, you can see the bears.
Right. And so Riffle's platform has no waiting list. You can stay there as long as you want. First come, first serve. The Falls platform, obviously, when it's high season, there is a waiting list. So it's like a restaurant. She takes your name, and they also like put a little note of what you look like so they can go find you. And then you wait.
We waited 5 minutes the first time, and you can spend a half hour out there on the Upper Falls platform. Wait 5 minutes the first time. And the next 2 times we did have to wait about an hour 15 because it was prime time. But after about 2 o'clock, a lot of the masses left and went back to a very short to no wait for the rest of the afternoon.
So we took the 8 o'clock plane. So we were there by 8:20, 8:30. Went through bear school. We were actually out at the platform by 9:05. And so that's why it was only 5 minutes. And a majority of the people are coming from like Anchorage for day trips or things like that. So they won't get there till 9 o'clock. So that's why we got lucky with that. But yeah, between the hours of 10 and 2, it started to tail off, and then 3, we never had a wait after that. And this is high season.
We're no experts for sure, but certainly the midday period is much busier than the morning and the evenings. And of course, if you're lucky enough to win the lottery and get a reservation, which is possible to stay in the park,
right? They
both
have
camping and the cabins there. Of course, you can watch them even outside of the times of when we were there.
Right. They close the platform to people at 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So if you're staying there, it stays late here in the summer. So you can go out at all hours. That's awesome. We obviously did not plan this far enough in advance, which is usually a year or more to get that lodging.
But of course, do what we did and stay over in King Salmon, jump over there early in the mornings.
Yeah, and you do beat the crowd, and you get to stay later because a lot of these day trips are leaving, obviously, close to I think they probably leave between 3 and 5. We took the 6 o'clock flight, so that meant we could stay out there all the way till 5:30.
All in all, very enjoyable.
When we got there in the morning, it was an amazing time in the falls. No one is on top of the falls, but there was a bunch of bears around. And then we came back after waiting an hour after our first snack, around 10 something. I think it was 11. I think it was 11 o'clock when we got out on the platform. And there were 2 bears there, and they all left while we were there. There was no bears on the upper part of the falls. Way, way down in the distance, there were bears. And so it fluctuates. It depends on the time of day. And then we came back, and more bears are congregating. We got lucky. We saw one on the falls catching fish. So it was very varied experiences at the falls. So I'm very glad we got every opportunity to get out on that deck, the falls.
Yeah, definitely highly advisable to generate as much time as you can at the park. If you can do 4 hours, great. 5 hours, better. 6, better. More hours, the better. Because you're going to have unique experiences. It just depends on the bear behavior. They could be out there at 8 o'clock. They could be out there 9, 10, 11, 12. You don't know. I mean, there always is probably 1 or 2 around. But if you want lots, you just have to kind of get lucky. What's a favorite bear that you saw today?
I enjoyed the mamas and the babies, but I love to watch the biggest bear we saw today, at least in the water. And he just sits there. He doesn't have to hunt the fish. He doesn't have to go jumping. They come to him, and you don't even notice him half the time eating food. He was there for almost the entire time. So he did leave once. So that second time we went out to the platform, when I said they all left, this big boy grabbed himself a fish, a big old salmon, walked out and disappeared for a while. Must have been taking a nap. So he took himself a to-go snack. And then he was back again, same spot. Because he's like, why is everyone trying so hard? You just sit here and they come to you.
Yeah, a very smart bear. Very big bear for a reason. I will say, you kind of cheer for the salmon, though. I mean, the salmon, they're doing all this to go upriver to spawn back from where they were born. That's their drive to go all the way back. And you do find yourself rooting for the salmon. You see a lot of them get killed by the bears, and you see tens of thousands of them just trying to make that falls. And when one makes it and another makes it, occasionally, a very small percentage of them do. You're like, yeah. Or even when the bear go to bite them and then they dodge and jump out of the way at the last second, you do kind of root for the salmon a little bit.
Yeah, and I think this year it was easier not to notice them because there were so many. You're like, oh, that's fine. It's also interesting because the bears tend to swat at the salmon. You'll see some with scars and things on them, but they make it as long as it didn't cut deep into their flesh. They're still jumping at the falls. They're still trying to make it.
They're trying to complete their life cycle.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting also with that life cycle, how much, it's not just the bears that benefit from the salmon. So the bears, we said, there's so many, they just leave behind what they don't want. So you find things like ducks. We saw a mama duck and 6, 7 babies going through the salmon on the side, the salmon graveyard, if you will, picking up the pieces that were left. We also saw a squirrel. I wish I had gotten a video of it, scampering off with a bright pink, chunk of salmon to take back to his tree. But it was just the cycle of life that these salmon runs sustain is very evident at Brooks Falls.
Yeah, it's very remarkable to watch nature at work.
I think it left us. If we hadn't loved Alaska before, we definitely loved Alaska. This was a great thing to end on. So if you're thinking of coming to Katmai, and you're thinking, this is a national park I want to cross off, but it seems maybe hard to get to. It does cost money. If you can save up for any park in Alaska, and that's all you can do this one.
Absolutely.
Do it.
Alaska is amazing. Last frontier, well-earned nickname. If you're going to pick one place to make sure you visit, make it Katmai and make it Brooks Falls. Your mind will be blown by the nature that you're going to be able to see.
Yeah, and we talked about the fact that we stayed till the 6 o'clock flight and everyone was leaving at 2 and 3 and how that was an amazing experience. Doesn't matter. If that's all you can do, if you can just get here at 9 and have to leave at 2, does not matter. You'll get to that platform at least once. And it takes patience. And I saw some people getting frustrated, getting out to that platform and not realizing that if you sit there for 30 minutes, you're going to get a spot. People are fluctuating. You have to be patient. And if that's your one time, do it. Just do it. Even if I could only have done the platform once.
It's worth it.
Hope you enjoyed this recap of Katmai, specifically Brooks Falls. I know for a fact that if you're watching this via video, you're going to have very little of us and a lot of the bears. So if that's something you're interested in, look us up on YouTube on Living on the Way. So as we always like to say, we do enjoy having you along on our journey. And we would love to hear if you've been to Brooks Falls or if you've had these epic wildlife experiences. Definitely leave us a comment.
Let's talk about how people actually get to Brooks Falls before we wrap things up. Because Katmai is one of those places where the experience is incredible, but the logistics really shape what your day looks like.
I would say there's 3 main ways to see Brooks Falls. Option 1 is a day trip by small plane from Anchorage. I would say it's the easiest logistically because everything's bundled up together and you fly in, you watch the bears for part of the day, and then you fly right back that evening.
Option 2 is to fly commercial to King Salmon and then connect either by a boat ferry or a small float plane over to Brooks Falls. With this option, you typically sleep in King Salmon and then have the time to dedicate a long day trip from there.
And we chose 2 nights in King Salmon so that we could fly to King Salmon later in the day, sleep, wake up, get to Katmai, and spend all day there. Go back to King Salmon, get a good night's sleep, and then fly back to Anchorage the following day.
Option 3 is the unicorn. You still get yourself to Brooks Falls the same way as option 2, but you win the lottery. You get to actually stay at Brooks Falls.
Right, and this is either in the rustic Brooks Lodge cabins or the dedicated campground. For Brooks Lodge, you're looking at applying roughly a year and a half in advance, with the application opening in December for stays in the following year. So you need to be ready in December of 2026 to book the lodge for 2028. Yes, 8. And the winners are notified in January or February. And if you want to do that route, I would say do a lot of research because there's a lot that goes into it and a lot of ways to help your chances at winning that lottery. And for camping, spots open up on recreation.gov, which is a lot like most national park campsites, but it's in monthly blocks several months ahead of time, and they sell out fast. So you need to be online the moment they drop.
And that brings us to the end of this ultimate Alaska journey.
We hope you found value in this because as amazing as our trip was, and we really did pull it off, booking only about 4 to 6 months out, there were definitely things we couldn't do, and we've tried to be honest about those lessons learned along the way.
We appreciate you coming along on the journey with us. If you have any questions about planning your own Alaska adventure, drop them in the comments below, and we'll do our best to help out.
And tell us, what did we miss? What would you add from your own experience? And until next time, we will be
living on the way.